We crushed the markets last year, and man, I'm excited. So, listen, I finally got around to it. I know we're a few weeks into the new year, but I just got around to kind of accumulating all the stuff we did in 2022 in terms of our private trading classes with Six Figure Trading Coach. You can also access these private classes through a couple of other companies. But before we go into all that, I just want to show you what we did in approximately probably like 30 minutes to an hour of trading time twice a week. Classes typically are like 2 or 3 hours long, mostly because we're discussing all kinds of ideas and counter narratives and just different topics, answering questions and kind of holding hands, helping whoever needs some help. But I'm excited to tell you, we got over 485,000 pips live in 2022. So before we do that, let's click around a little bit and show you. Obviously, I have to start off with a disclaimer. And when I do this, for those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Jenny Baker, and I am a Forex trading coach. I trade and train people in how to trade the markets, right? You can use the same information that I go over for anything from your stock portfolios, your retirement stuff, of course, even stocks, options, and cryptos. Obviously, my disclaimer is I am not your legal or financial advisor. Please keep that in mind. Know that I practice high risk, high reward trading. You can do similar or comparable things with lower risk or lower reward calculations and styles. With that said, check this out. 2022, and I'm going to go over the report that we actually used. I'll go over that completely live, and we'll go over to MetaTrader as well, just real quick to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like in our day-to-day classes. But for 2022, we made almost 500,000 pips. That is a lot of pips. Now, granted, I have to call it spade a spade and say the majority of those were from US 30. That is my baby, and I trade that probably more than anything else. But having said that, you were talking about everything from Forex to cryptos to metals and, of course, indices. In 2022, live in those Tuesday and Thursday morning classes, we took over 308 trades. We had over an 87% accuracy. Our average win to loss rate was about 2.5. That's subjective. We'll go over that here in a second. And we made over 485,000 pips. To give you an idea, remember, a pip is valued differently based off of the instrument you're trading and the broker you're trading it on. But in general, this is kind of the flat calculation, not to the accurate by the book thing. You're talking a standard lot size is about $10 per pip. So you guys can do the math. Actually, I think I can even pull up a calculator. It might show. Let's find out if it shows in this video, but we'll see. $485,000 times $10 pip, right? That's the standard lot size, is, there's a comma, so $4.8 million. Now, granted, we know not everyone's going to be trading that, but let's say you failed at this by 90%. Is that still not a lot of money? Is that still not more money than most people make in their day jobs? And as I go over the rest of this, what I kind of have prepared here for you, this is more money than most lawyers make, unless you're, a lawyer for the stars or a doctor for somebody in Hollywood. The class average across the board, the national average, is far less than this. Even if you failed this by 90%, it's still far less than this. But I digress. Let's take this calculator. I would have way too much fun with that. I went ahead and did some Basel calculations just to kind of give you an idea. If you followed these trades and caught most of them, and we're not looking for 100% of anything, nothing in life is 100%, and you had a 2K starting balance and you were risking 3% per trade, what I'd like people to see is that that's over $37,000 for about 2 hours of trade time a week. I figure there's more discussion and there's some other nuances that go into this, but you get the idea. That's, again, more than some people are making with their bachelor's degrees. Starting with about 5K at 2%, you're still looking at somewhere around here. And remember, this is subjective because wins and losses fall randomly. Starting with a 5K balance, 3%, you guys get the idea. A 10K balance at 2% risk, you're still looking at over $75,000, and a 10K balance at 3% risk, you're looking at, just shy of $250,000. And remember, this is based off of no rules, no boss, no one that can come into your industry and kind of reset the rules, no one that can come into your industry and take what you learn. This is a skill that you get to take forever. You can pass it on to your children and your children's children, and or you can build enough wealth that takes care of them as well. Just for an example to kind of give you an idea. This does take some skill, without a doubt, but keep in mind you can do far bigger percentages and or far smaller amounts of starting balances. Wanted to show, obviously, this is about 2 classes. We already went over that. 2 trade sessions per week, 2 to 4 hours a week in total trade time, which is, I went ahead and did the hour Okay, the hour based off of some of these equations, right? What does that make your time worth per hour? Just to kind of give you an idea, because this is the geeky stuff. And I am kind of geeky at this. My mother told me a long time ago and asked me that question of what do you think my time is worth per hour? You know, we were talking about drive time and all this other stuff. And that was about when I realized, holy cow, per hour, my time is not worth what I thought it was, right? So I went ahead and looked up the national averages, and I'll show you that here in a second. But the national average in terms of America, particularly for being a doctor. And what I realized was even if you failed at this by more than 50%, you would still be making more per hour than doctors make. And I'm going to say that one more time just because my voice didn't fluctuate enough to really be YouTube worthy with the driving at home thing, right? But if you fail at this industry by 50% at this, calculations at what we've been able to accomplish, you would still be making more than the average MD makes nationwide. Now, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and go over it and show you that statistic just so I don't, get my foot in my mouth. I am not going to go down the rabbit hole of following all these sites, but by all means, do your own Google research. Take a look at kind of what you're going to find. Obviously, some sources are more reputable than others, but to kind of give you an idea, $102 an hour, $130,000 a year, up to, I'm sure, much, much more, $150,000 a year. But this is a pretty good kind of across the board average. Remember, there's going to be a lot more rural areas and obviously a lot more bigger cities that are going to be, break that bell curve, if you will. But we're looking for the average. Just to kind of drive this point home of what this skill could potentially be worth to you if you actually took the time to learn it. Okay, let's take a look. First off, you're going to notice that we've got Six-Figure Trading Coach all-time, Six-Figure Trading Coach 2022, and of course, we're starting a brand new one for Six-Figure Trading Coach 2023. And we'll do the same thing for the live trade ideas we call as well, but this is mine. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the very, very top. And of course, come all the way here. I'm going to start with 20, if it will let me. There we go. 2021. So first things first, notice how we didn't really start taking account of these until approximately March-ish, because at the time I was trading dual weeks with dual industries, a couple different universities and companies. Needless to say, this is going back from the first quarter of 2021. So I'm going to go ahead and just make you guys a little blind and scroll all the way down so you guys can kind of get a really good idea of what we're looking at. But this is what we were able to accomplish all throughout 2021 and 2022. In the last less than 2 years, we've had over 703,000 pips. We've got a 2.2 to 1 win to loss ratio, approximately an 87% average, accuracy in terms of versus how many wins versus losses we've kind of taken across the board. And beautiful, beautiful, beautiful system. Now 2022, I'm going to scroll all the way up to the very top. This is us, the date we're trading, the period we're trading, and of course, how many pips we ended up getting from it, and our entry and our exit points. If it hit take profit 1, 2, 3, stop loss, for example, holding when we're carrying over from week to week, because some of them are swing trades, not just scalps. And I'm going to keep scrolling down. So this is what we've done live. All these classes have been recorded for double, checking and accuracy and all that good stuff in between. But to continue all the way to the very bottom, this is what we ended up ending on. 2.5 to 1 win to loss ratio. Granted, that's kind of subjective because we do trade everything from Forex pairs to indices. And we know that there's a pretty big difference between Forex instruments, metals, and of course indices. Their pip counts are dynamically different. They're not even in the same family, if you will. But because we know not everyone is at the stage where they're trading the same levels of risk and reward and are familiar with ATR, we're tracking this because it's a numerical value that is consistent, duplicatable, and mathematically accurate, right? So yes, on average, calculating the wins and the losses, that's about what we've averaged. I do think it'd be a little bit different because it'd be a little bit higher, actually, to be more transparent, because we have some rollover weeks where these pips are rolled over from the previous week. So therefore, this US 30 trade would be worth X amount, right? And this would be worth X amount. Whereas losses are stable and final, wins are sometimes spread out between two. So just to give you a little bit of math there. I'm showing you this and letting us focus real quick, really on this box for a very good reason. I'm going to go over here in a second to what we call a Monte Carlo simulator. And it shows you kind of what's possible with different starting balances. Had you been in those classes, had you made 70 or 80% of them, right? Had you had good risk management and not, getting margin calls, you can't be stopped out because of bad management. But if you had followed those trades with reasonable management that your account can afford, using a broker that your budget is conducive to, right? You can't just do 2000-to-1 leverage and expect it to work, because it's the bigger leverage. You need to have the right lots or mini lots accordingly based off of your starting balance. But let's go take a look at what this actually equals or could potentially equal. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know, you guys can look up what Monte Carlo is. Really, this is just a simulation that's randomly placing the wins and losses throughout a set of 62 trades. That's all this is. There's nothing too fancy or complicated at all. When I hit this button, it's called function 10 or function 9 on Apple. Let me try that again. Function 9, there you go. It will continue to repopulate and randomly drag those wins and losses in a random order. So now that I've showed you this, let's talk about some of the starting balances we first discussed. So $10,000 starting balance at a 3% risk, assuming you had 87% winning rate, kind of like we did, a 2.5, which we had greater than this, by the way, average win to loss rate. Let's take a look at what this can equal in a year's time. Again, based off of, what is that, approximately 2 to 4 hours a week? I keep going. You can look at the low end and the high end. Notice how this set of parameters don't really have a really big chance of blowing, right? Blowing your account, meaning losing all of your capital. Obviously, if you're not following rules, yes, you can do that in trading. But we figure the low end is what? $200,000. The high end is $700,000, give or take. And we'll kind of take that middle range. Remember, this is based off of 62 trades. It gets even much better. For most people, they're starting with something along these lines. 1,000, 2,000. And because we trade indices, I'm going to say 2,500. Because 2,500 is doable with indices unless you're trading mini or micro lots. It's not really advantageous to be trading US 30. Because you're starting with a smaller balance, and assuming your accuracy is good, you're not going to bump up your risk per trade if your accuracy is not good. If your accuracy is not above 75, 80%, we're not going to bump this up to be 10% risk per trade. We're not doing that because we're not gamblers, right? We're investors. So win rate, we're going to keep that the same. Average size to loss, keep that the same. Let's just take a look. If you started your investment or your demo account with $2,500 at a 5% risk per trade, again, I'm going to hit function 9, well, if it will let me, over and over again to kind of give you an idea. You've got a high end of 1.5 million, 2.5 million, low end of a what? 500,000? 500,000 is the low end. Going once, going twice. Sorry, have to have some fun. But you guys get the idea. This is all we're doing in these live classes is, again, it's not about the strategy. Yes, some people have better strategies than others. It's not about the system or the entry that you use exactly. It's about your management. It's about your consistent application of how much you're putting into the market, meaning what is your lot size? What is the risk you're doing? What is your consistent approach to management, meaning stop losses, when you'll protect, if you'll put a trailing stop, and all the good stuff in between. And that's really the stuff we go over in class. Yes, we do look for a couple of live trade ideas that you can kind of use as a scalp. It's for the shorter period of time. And of course, you can use more as an intraday/swing trade if it has some longer potential. But the idea is the trades we review at the beginning of New York session are meant to be able to be played out within the next 2 to 5 days is kind of how we target it, mostly because of how my schedule sits with this company. So I had to show you a little bit of what this can equal. Obviously, we practice much safer risk to reward. Most brokers won't let you go much higher than 16, 17% if with the highest leverage possible and still maintaining a positive or practical level of, margin availability. But needless to say, the sky is the limit. This is a skill that is sometimes frustrating and hard to learn. But once you learn it, no one can take this from you. This is a method that you can potentially decide, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to continue to learn this skill because I know once I have this skill, no one can take this from me. Financial freedom is literally really within your grasp if you're willing to stay the course. So for all the YouTubers out there and all the people teaching new systems and saying 98% accuracy, and then they can't duplicate it, prove it, or stick with it for a year or two, I would just implore you to pick a lane. Any strategy, any system, any coach that you work with the best, stay there long enough to actually get good at this skill. As usual, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share, and all the good things that help the YouTube algorithm do what it needs to do to get these videos in front of the right people. If there are certain topics or things you'd like discussed on this channel, please make sure you put them in the comment section, and I will do my best to get to them and answer what I can. Honestly, last but not least, I hope that your year of 2023 is not only lucrative financially speaking, but also mentally and emotionally. I pray that you grow and learn into all the things that you need to make this next year the best year of your life. So please do make sure you stay the course with your trading journey and learn this skill.